is the Two Marketeers podcast, where hosts and marketing experts Patrick and Lindsay Waugh seek to uncover what makes brands so powerful in how they impact modern society and culture.
Two Marketeers. They've got a podcast. The Two Marketeers podcast.
Hey.
Hey.
Hello, Marketeer.
Hello, Marketeer, and to all the other Marketeers listening. This is episode 4?
5.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Well, this whole intro's a waste. Anyway, what are we talking about today, Sean Patrick? What's going on?
Lindsay, I have a question for you.
Oh, no, I'm not prepared. Okay, let me chug this coffee to answer your question.
When you're done drinking your delicious coffee,
What is it? What's the question?
why did you go freelance? What on earth possessed you to go freelance? You crazy old woman.
Oy, you did this to me.
Oh,
Let's remember.
sorry.
Perhaps we should start with why you went freelance, because you were in the pool and coaxed me into dipping my toe.
I did. It took me years, didn't it?
You really wore me down.
I
And
did.
here I am, wondering how the hell I got here.
It all worked out, didn't it?
It all worked out in the end.
My story is a very uninteresting one, so let's get to yours as soon as possible. I went freelance. I've done it twice, and I did it because I had to.
Yeah.
I guess that's not true. I mean, first time I was packaged out, I went corporate side, worked in beer, went corporate side, and digital. I came on the sort of start of making digital internal, and all these big corporations were saying we can do it ourselves. So I went from an agency that worked on big beer, and I went to work for a competitor, big beer, and it didn't work out. So yeah, it was an eye opener. It wasn't a great situation, but I think in the industry that I'm in specifically, like we're both in marketing, but me being creative, a lot of my peers had done that early on. Even when you're in school, you think about, well, are you going to go work for yourself, or you have no idea, or are you going to go just get a job? So that's what I did. It was a rough start. My wife, Simone, was already freelance. She had gone freelance, about the time we started expecting, I say that, our son. So it's never been this easy sort of wonderful, I'm going to go fly away. And then what happened was we ended
Is
up
that
building.
what it's supposed to be? Are we
Isn't
supposed
it?
to just fly away from
I
the
think we
nest?
think that if that's not the runway before us, that we really shouldn't do it. And then I started it with Simone. We started a company and it did really well. And then I went corporate again. And that's how I met you. And then the
Right.
second time was mental health. I just couldn't do it anymore. And I had to just face that, as much as I love doing this, it's just the business structure I was in, no fault of them. I wasn't thriving. I was barely surviving, and I actually had to just stop working. And then I just was, I'll put it this way, I was so broken that I couldn't even envision going back to work for anyone else. And that was, my gosh, that was about 9 years ago. And here I am.
Was it 9 years ago?
Yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah. So that's why I went freelance.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear the hard stuff. They want to hear the easy stuff, right? And it was hard, but it had to happen. I'm so glad it did happen.
I do think it is a bit like in our industry kind of like glamorized a little bit if you can be successful at it. Like, oh, you left your agency and went on your own. You can do whatever you want. And like, wasn't that an amazing choice? But I think for a lot of people, like just speaking to a lot of people, it's not this amazing choice that you've just made.
Yeah, not at the time.
Yeah.
So Lindsay, why did you go freelance?
I think I had worked in agency for probably 15 years before I went freelance. And I always wanted to do it, but I just wanted to go out on my own. I wanted to be working with a bunch of businesses and a bunch of agencies. And I had always had this desire to do it. But in our industry, I think typically it's creative people who go freelance. I had never really heard of freelance strategists before.
Okay.
Or freelance, really anything else. It was really just a creative position. So I had always wanted to do it, but literally had no idea what it looked like. And I came back from my last mat leave into an agency, and then you and I had started talking about it, and you were doing it. You were doing kind of a freelance strategy type of role, like a hybrid creative strategy kind of role at that time.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, like, what does it look like? What can we sell? What can we do? How does it work? And you brought me into my first freelance project and say like, okay, we have this, there's an opportunity here, and here's how we could do it. And do you want to collaborate on it and figure it out? Which was kind of my runway to start my freelance career, really. To say,
right.
like,
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it wasn't, I think a lot of times too, especially in certain situations like you've described, it's like tomorrow you're freelance, where it's like you've been packaged out and now you're on your own. So like tomorrow you're freelance. I had a long time to think about it. I had a business plan. I had an idea of how many hours I would have to work. I had an idea of the kind of clients I wanted to have, and us being able to collaborate on that first project gave me a sense of what it could look like, what the work was going to be like, and it gave me time and money to be able to start out on my own and start to figure it out. So that was kind of my springboard to get into it. But I've really realized in the last year the real reasons why I wanted to do it in the first place.
What was it?
These two things I've learned are the reasons why. I have an underlying entrepreneurial spirit.
Right.
So I come from, my family has always run their own businesses. They've been self-starters. They've been people who have done it for themselves, who have taken a leap and not known what it was and like built something worth something. And I just have that. I don't, for better or worse, I don't fall into line easily. I don't always want to know as hard as it is to develop your own process, I don't always want to know the process. I want to just be able to do it and to figure it out. And I have a desire to build something, which is kind of what one of my big motivators were. The thing that made it seem so attractive was I could go out and do it and build something. And I also wanted to be valued for my work and my opinion and doing that work. So being able to kind of travel around and work with a variety of different people really enabled me to feel valued within the industry and kind of being able to do strategy work for a bunch of different clients. So there's that side of it, kind of this entrepreneurial spirit. And I think the other thing that made it so attractive, that made me always want to do it, was this like idea of novelty. I've really realized that I'm a novelty kind of driven person, a newness person.
Okay.
So I think when you're coming up in a lot of agency environments, especially at really, really big agencies, you're on a client usually, or a few clients.
Yes.
So
you're dedicated, right? You're woven into even the budget and
that's right.
The operations of it. Yeah.
On really big clients, you're a dedicated resource. So for some time at Cassette, I was like solely dedicated to McDonald's strategy. And then I was solely dedicated to Walmart strategy. And so in those environments, strategic planning can become very cyclical. So you end up doing very similar things year in, year out. It's kind of like, what's our back to school plan this year? What's our holiday plan this year? So
was a lot of it like developing playbooks and working with playbooks and then going back, once that work is done, it's really about just following the playbook.
It wasn't playbooks. It was just campaign process. It was like, we are doing our back to school campaign. So we go through the process we always go through, and we're just trying to figure out what to do for this seasonal event this year.
Right.
it's very good for people who want a super deep understanding of a brand or a business. But I've realized for me that variety and novelty and newness is a big thing that fuels my motivation.
Okay.
So
Novelty.
we've talked a lot about in our past couple episodes, like motivation. What keeps you motivated? What are your motivators? Like, what are you trying to pursue? And I've realized for me, it's a lot of thinking of new problems, meeting new people, solving new challenges. And so this combination of like an entrepreneurial spirit and this desire for newness is, I think, what was that underlying motivation for me to want to do it for so long.
Novelty. I like that. It's a very actually powerful word when it comes to what we refer to as value add in marketing. There's things like convenience, loyalty, and novelty. And it's actually sort of like, newness. What is it about a product that makes it something people haven't seen before? And I think that's interesting that you've actually picked that.
It's a tricky thing in life, though, what I've realized.
Yeah. Life
to be
gets
someone
boring.
who pursues newness. I get bored easily.
Yeah, I know.
And so that's tricky.
So I can relate to some pieces of that. What I know now is that I want freedom. I need freedom, but I'm not the kind of independent spirit that knows that about myself. So I'm a rule follower, right? We know that. Lindsay's breaking me of that. I'm a rule follower, whether because I was raised Catholic, I don't know. But I'm also, the way I manage that is that if I have to, I change the rules. So I have to change the rules before I change an action. So we've talked a lot about, process, and practice is really important. Is part of my practice is give me the rules. I want to know what the rules are. And then I want to collect enough information to see if those are the right rules for me to follow. If they're not, I will not eschew them and say, forget rules. It's like, oh, you know what? These rules need to shift a little bit if we're going to do it. And then I get buy-in on the way we need to do it. And that's the freedom I like, because I need the discipline to not lose sight of what we're doing when you're always looking for newness and your job is to come up with something fresh. So I think what I love now and what keeps me freelance is appreciating the balance of, it's tough when there's too much work, not enough work. And how do you balance that? But on the other side is having the freedom to do things you want to do it in ways you believe are the right way to do it, or the right way for you to do it. And I can't go back.
Yeah.
Would you go back?
I don't think I could. I also think I can't go back. But
and I'm not opposed to it, right?
No, it's not. I would never. It's just.
It's not about being opposed to it. I can envision what that would look like where I would be as fulfilled as I am right now.
Yeah, I can't imagine myself ever going back. And it's not the I don't want to work for someone else ever. It's just I think there's really amazing companies to work for.
Absolutely.
I just think the things that drive me, I won't find in a better place than where I am right now. Yeah.
And you mentioned it last week where you said the big difference you've noticed between working within, like a business, an agency that is full-time employees versus a more curated team, a team of experts in various fields, subject matter experts. And you said that there's just this accountability for the quality of the work, because it's not just about keeping your job, it's about doing great work, and you have a reputation and you need to continue to have great work. So that's always learning. I feel like what happens when you're in a full-time role, you have to, the idea is figure out the role and then just do it. And, part of me seeks comfort in that. That probably makes you throw up in your mouth a little bit. And you know what? I wish I could work for someone else, to be quite honest, but that person would have to do exactly what I tell them to do.
I don't know that that's what that's called. I don't think
Entrepreneurial
that's
spirit.
working for someone else also.
Yeah.
So we're always trying to disagree and it never works. We always end up agreeing, but there is one thing I kind of disagree with that I think we should talk about for a second.
Let's do it.
You spoke about this idea of freedom. I think like freedom is kind of like bullshit, to be honest. Like people who are thinking they want to go freelance to be free, when you're so accountable and so responsible and so motivated to make your own thing successful, you're not that free around money. Sometimes you have to take projects you don't want to take. Sometimes you have to do work you don't want to do. I think people think sometimes the kind of suck it up factor is going to be removed when you're the one who's in charge of your own destiny.
Right.
And I suppose that is freedom. But I would say there's a lot of sacrifice as well for the things that you have maybe put in place in your own mind, or the things that you feel like are success measures for you that make it less free than you think. Like I literally am running my own business for 5 years. So technically I'm free. I'm in charge of how much money I make. I'm in charge of the projects that I work on. I would just say that the feeling for me is not freedom. There's still a hell of a lot of responsibility and going through it and doing stuff you don't want to do. And it sometimes feels even more impactful or less free because I'm so motivated to make sure it's successful.
I hate to say this, but I don't disagree.
No.
You're totally right. If you go into it thinking you're looking for freedom, you're going to be sadly disappointed because you think, because the kind of freedom you're probably thinking is the opposite of what you have. You're like, I want to be everything this isn't. And it's like, no, it's a lot the same, but only when you do it, when you know it's going to be hard, when you take that super accountability that even then you don't think you want. But what you do is you have the freedom to make the decisions that you think are best. Not about, do I work today? Do I not? Do I take the year off? Do I go traveling? No. Grow up, right? It's about doing exactly what you do now, but having the freedom in some of the decisions so that the work is more in line with what you want it to be, that you're solving the solutions you want. So I think you're right. I think freedom should not be, that was never my vision. To be quite honest, I didn't want to be free. I didn't want to stop working. However, 10 years, and then the first time, I think it was 7 years of our business, and then 10 years now, it's 15 years, as well as 20 years of working for organizations. Only now do I say the one reason I wouldn't go back is because I'm not willing to give up the freedom I have discovered I need. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's a great point though, is, you know, and Lindsay's always you're really good at always reinforcing is, listen, you'll hear about these business successes. You'll hear about these people who went off on their own and it's all great. It's effing hard. It's terrifying, but it's your decision.
Yes. I suppose that's freedom. I guess that is freedom.
Exactly. Well, it's freedom secondary to accountability.
Yeah. I think the funny thing about freedom is I think I will look back and say I was free, but I sure as hell don't feel free in the moment. Like I'll be like, I had the power to live my life and my work life the way I wanted, but in the moment it doesn't feel like freedom.
Yeah.
Never have I been more invested in doing as much as I possibly can to make sure that this business is successful. Yeah. And so I think the time, the investment, the mental space, the work, like all of it is so much more than it would have ever been at a company, if just for me. But like you say, the pride is like next level.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was great. my parting words would be freedom is not the goal, it's the result. So if you say, and even if you've done it and you're like, why am I doing this? I thought this was going to be so much easier. It's like, really? Okay, well, you learn because it's not easy. However, it's so much more rewarding. And if it's not fulfilling you, there's only one person who can change that as a person who works for yourself. You. So it's a tough pill to swallow, accountability, but there's a clarity that comes. And I think in this workspace environment right now, you want to be a leader one day, well, start by learning how to lead yourself, because no one appreciates a leader who cannot lead themselves.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great chat for anyone who's ever wanted to know what it's like to go freelance. Literally a just little sliver of information about that.
Our biggest life choices in under 30 minutes. Perfect.
Yeah, done. That's it.
Thanks, Lindsay. I appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing your story, Sean, and happy listening, Marketeers.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Two Marketeers podcast. New episodes launch every 2 weeks.
Find the Two Marketeers podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you like to listen. And be sure to rate and subscribe.
Listen on our website, thetwomarketeers.ca, or you can ask Alexa to play the Two Marketeers podcast.
Want to keep in touch? Follow the Two Marketeers on LinkedIn or at Two Marketeers on TikTok. We've always got something to share.
This podcast is over.